Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the inStriv Fat Loss Podcast. Just to remind you, those of you who may just be joining us for the first time, who inStriv is, who I am, what this is all about. inStriv is a natural homeopathic weight loss solution where we teach you to lose weight the healthy way, where you not only are losing it, but learning how to keep it off for life. So really meant to be more of a lifestyle change, a solution than a Band-Aid like most diets are. Again, my name is Diane. I'm a senior therapeutic weight loss specialist here at inStriv. And I want to introduce you to our special guest today. We have Joannis Lehau, who is the founder of inStriv, and Cami Atwater. Cami is one of our coaches and also a nutritionist here. And what we're going to talk about today with all of you is the myths and misconceptions that a lot of us here are familiar with, aren't sure what to think about when it comes to weight loss. We're going to explore a couple different ways. A lot of people are losing weight or trying to lose weight nowadays and kind of give you the pros and cons of those and really a better idea of either why they might work or why they will not work. So that's sort of what we're going to get into today. And I think the first topic, ladies, I'd like to sort of cover is the big one, right? The elephant in the room, calorie counting. So let's talk a little bit about that. You know, most diets, even right down to Weight Watchers and the points system, at its heart, that's still calories, right? Those points equivalent to calories. They're not, it's that type of a system. A lot of people yo-yo on diets like that. Cami, why do you think that is?
Yeah, so in calorie counting, people are focused on the wrong thing. Caloric density is going to throw you off instead of nutrient density. That's what you should be focusing on. So if you are just counting your calories, you might be hitting the right number of calories, but you're not getting the nutrients you need. So your body is still going to be craving the nutrients that you didn't get because you were focused on the calories instead of the nutrients. So people tend to have cravings, they feel hungry, they can't stay on that number of calories, they end up eating more calories and binge eating afterward. So it turns into a vicious cycle because they're focused on the wrong thing.
For sure. And another thing I think about that too is that adjustment that the metabolic system makes, right? So when we're cutting down to a certain amount of calories that's lower than our normal, eventually when your body catches up to that, your metabolism is going to decrease. Is that also correct? Yeah.
And along those lines, I mean, I know oftentimes this is the one thing that you often say as far as, okay, so you have a strawberry and an M&M, basically the same number of calories. And let's say we put that into our system. How is that going to end up being in our system, and is it a benefit to us? And how's that impacting your body when you take the same number of calories in, but you look at the makeup of what that calorie is?
For sure, because a calorie isn't a calorie. You know, truthfully, that, like you said, that M&M, obviously it's not going to metabolize well, right? It's not going to give us what we're looking for nutritionally. So the other thing to keep in mind too is the body will run on sugar or fat. Those are the two things that, you know, kind of we are made to be able to use for fuel. We're meant to be fat burners, but sugar is a shortcut. It's easy for your body to break down and it's addictive to your brain. So when you're providing foods that have that higher sugar content, you're actually promoting that metabolic problem with your body being very hooked on sugar and not wanting to burn fat very well. So yeah, definitely don't break down the same way. As far as those point systems too, what do you guys think about the fact that there's free foods in some of those, right? That you can eat as many, I'm going to use an example that kind of threw me, bananas as you want within a day. Like how do you guys feel about that?
There are certain foods that are known as negative calorie foods, and basically what that means is your body burns more calories digesting the food than what the food actually has. So those types of foods, I think it's fine to eat endlessly, especially if you're trying to lose weight. But if it's a food like a banana that has about 100 calories, it does have higher sugar content for a fruit, that would not be the type of food that you could have as an eat it as much as you want type of calorie or food.
For sure.
So I think it depends on the food.
Okay.
One of those is celery, I think. That's one of those that are...
Right, exactly. So it's much better to eat something like that than a banana, we know, breaks down into sugar pretty rapidly, a lot of starch in there. And, most people, at least who have dealt with weight loss somewhat, have heard of the glycemic index. And while not all of us are experts in that, if a food is higher on that than another one, your better bet is to probably eat the one that's a little lower on that glycemic scale. Bananas are pretty high. So definitely the free food thing kind of threw me on some of these low calorie plans, because I guess what you said, though, makes sense. And I wasn't even thinking along those lines that some of those foods actually take more calories to digest than what's in them. And that makes a lot of sense then. And it's great to have that, things like celery. And I'm assuming things like lettuce as well would be, a food like that. Do those foods stick with you though, when you're eating something like that? Do you feel like it creates that fullness feeling that some people are going to need?
Again, it depends on the food and it can depend on the person and what they're used to eating. But there are certain foods which are surprising where the caloric intake does not seem to affect weight gain. And a good example would be nuts. They're very high calorie. They're high in fat. It's healthy fats, of course. But they have done research studies where they have two groups of people, both on the same diet. It's a healthy diet, whole foods diet. They track their calories, their weight. They give them everything to eat. And then one group, they just randomly add in several handfuls of nuts into their diet. Nothing else changes. And you would expect, for the number of calories they added in, that they would gain about 15 pounds. And the study showed that they gained no weight.
Wow.
And so they stayed the same. So that's a prime example of not all calories are equal.
Exactly. And foods don't metabolize the same way. You're 100% right.
It depends how it affects your metabolism. And also, not every calorie eaten is actually a calorie absorbed.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would love to read that study. That's really interesting, because again, you would think they're super high in fat, super high in calories, and if you're like me, I don't know, when I'm eating nuts, I don't stop at 5. It's kind of hard, right? So it's good to know that if you do go a little over on a healthy food, some of them are not going to have that impact, because of course we do advocate nuts as one of the healthy fats.
And I will add, it has to be just natural nuts. They can't be candied, overly salted. So we're talking just the raw nut.
And again, we wouldn't advocate eating a handful, honestly. There is portion control involved there too, but it is kind of neat to know that there are foods that just metabolize that well, that they don't have that impact. Now, along the lines of calorie counting, what are your thoughts on fasting, ladies? What do you think about intermittent fasting? That's a big one. A lot of people are using it. Yeah. So what are your thoughts there?
Intermittent fasting is a little bit tricky because it does have its benefits and it does have a place. But if your main goal is weight loss, it's not the route that I would direct people towards. And there's two main reasons why I wouldn't. Intermittent fasting, just to kind of define what it is, most people will eat all of their food in an 8-hour window, and they will fast for 16 hours. Now, there are some benefits to your immune system with doing that, but for weight loss, what usually ends up happening is that people do not eat healthy in that 8-hour window, and in addition to that, intermittent fasting completely ignores the thermic effect of food, which is basically just a fancy way of saying every time you eat something, you burn calories to break down and digest that food. So when you're narrowing the window that you're eating foods and producing those digestive enzymes and digesting the food, you're narrowing the window that you're revving up that part of your metabolism. So just as an example, if two people ate the same number of calories in a day and one person ate those calories in 2 meals and another person broke the same number of calories up into 4 meals, the person who ate 4 meals would burn more calories that day.
Right. Understandably, making your body work a little more
So that's my main problem with using intermittent fasting for weight loss.
Right.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Joe?
And again, I know so many people who do intermittent fasting for religious reasons, for certainly so many things, but totally agree with Cammie. It's not necessarily for weight loss.
I would agree, and definitely not sustainable, right? Because when you're using that method, eventually you are going to slow your metabolism, just as we were talking about before. Your body will adjust. So if you're not planning on continuing to fast, when you start eating more, there is a chance the weight would come back pretty quick. I've also seen a lot of people, and tell me what you think about this, that are in that fasting window, in that 8 hours they're eating, they're cutting way back on calories. So that would really put you right into starvation mode where you're storing everything you're eating. Is that pretty, am I right on that?
Yep. You want to make sure that your body's getting enough calories for all of the metabolic processes that have to happen in your body. So you really have to be careful.
Yeah, otherwise everything you're taking in is just being stored as fat at that point. You know, body doesn't know when you're going to eat again, so it's trying to take care of you. Yeah.
I know certainly my experience with people who have been on the program as well, who have said to us, oh, here's my food journal, here's what I'm eating. And we're like, you're not eating enough.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing your body go into that starvation mode where they're not actually losing the weight that they're supposed to because their body is going into that whole process versus, oh my gosh, I feel so full on the program.
Yes. And you brought to mind a client I had a few years ago who came in and was literally in tears during the consultation because she didn't eat. She was very much starving herself and couldn't understand why she wasn't losing weight and why, if she did, in her words, indulge and eat a meal like everyone else, she immediately was gaining weight, and was terrified when I explained to her that she needed to eat 3 meals a day and she needed to eat more. It was really that she was depleting that metabolic system so much. But when she took our advice and did it, her first month, she was down like 12 pounds and she couldn't believe it because she was eating more than she had in years. But it comes down to how things are metabolizing, and your body you have to punish your body to lose weight. And I feel like sometimes that's what diets look like to people. They look like a punishment. And along those lines, I think of keto and Atkins as a punishment because, you're eliminating all carbohydrate. What do you think about that? Because carbohydrate is an essential macronutrient. So there's got to be some things going on when you're eliminating it.
Yes, it is not good to eliminate all carbohydrates from your diet. The body needs at least 50 grams of carbs per day, which isn't a whole lot. If you eat a couple pieces of fruit, vegetables, you can easily hit 50 grams and more. But if you go below that, which the Atkins and keto diet both do, you can set yourself up for long-term health consequences like osteoporosis, kidney stones, all sorts of things. So it's not good.
And even in the short term, when you're losing weight, your body loses fat, muscle, water, fiber. But it's been proven that people who eat those extremely low carb diets lose a lot more muscle because the body is literally depleting the muscle to get the glucose the brain needs because you're no longer eating it. So there's a lot of risk involved long term, but also just in the short term, you might lose weight. But do you want to lose weight or do you want to lose fat? That's really what it comes down to. And if you're dieting in the wrong way, you might be sacrificing parts of your body you don't want to sacrifice, like that nice lean muscle. And when we look at a picture and someone has the nice lean body and the tight muscles, that's kind of what I think most of us are thinking when we think weight loss. We don't want to be thin but saggy and all that loose, and really on a diet that denies your body all carbohydrate, your chances of losing in that manner are much higher. Wouldn't you say, Cammie?
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think for me anyway, one thing I've always told clients and continue to tell clients is never lose weight in a way you can't keep doing because it's not sustainable. If you're not going to cut carb out for the rest of your life, probably not a good idea to lose the weight that way.
Yeah. And when you add them back in, you just gain weight all the faster because your body's not used to it.
Body's not used to it. It ate a lot of muscle. Your metabolism went down, and all of a sudden, you're storing everything. So, yeah, I would agree with you 100% that is risky for long-term health, but also just not. I used to have a joke that I would tell people, my clients, and I used to, if they brought it up, because everybody talked about the low carb stuff. They still do, but they'd always say, I have this wedding I want to go to in like a month. And what do you think about keto? Should I do that to get the weight off so I fit in the dress? And I always tell them, well, you might, if you do that to fit in the dress, when you eat at the wedding, you're going to gain it all back. So it's up to you, do you want this to solve the problem or do you just want to fit in the dress? And then the next couple days, just you're not going to fit in that dress anymore. So not sustainable is for sure how I feel about that. Now, back to some of the popular programs out there that advocate eating their meals, right? They send you the stuff, you're getting boxes of frozen things or whatever that you heat up or bars or whatever. What do you think about those plans?
My biggest thing with those plans is just that I feel like they're not sustainable. What happens if your meals don't get delivered? You don't know how to eat real food. So
if the UPS truck breaks down, you're in trouble.
So what if you go on vacation and you don't have your meal for some reason? You don't know how to eat. You need to know how to just eat food and be able to, manage that on your own and learn how to do it the right way. So it's the sustainability part for me.
For you. Mm-hmm. Joe, what do you?
And I totally agree. And that's why I love our program is because we educate our clients. We want you to know what you're eating, why you're eating it. And that's the beauty of the program is that it doesn't matter if the UPS truck doesn't get there. Here are things that I can eat. Here are things that I should avoid.
Right. And I love the way you put that, avoid, because no food is bad food, right? I mean, there's foods that are not nutritionally sound. There are foods that aren't going to do any benefit to our body, but they're not bad. They're just not weight loss friendly. They're not health conscious foods. If you choose to eat them, that's fine, but they can't be the staple of your diet. Especially if you're trying to lose weight, they need to be avoided. But I want our listeners to understand, we're not telling you can never have a piece of pizza again here, guys, okay? And we're not saying if it's someone's birthday, the cake is out. We're saying there's a way to eat to lose weight that keeps it sustainable. There's foods that you don't want to live on when you're trying to make your body get leaner and healthier. As far as the frozen thing, my other question there is preservatives, right? Because aren't they very processed, those little frozen meals they send you in the bars?
Yeah, that's another thing. You don't know how processed those meals are. You don't know what they're adding in for preservatives, chemicals. And right away, processed foods do not metabolize as easily as whole, real foods do.
For sure.
Because your body just doesn't know what to do with those added chemicals that are in there and the preservatives. So people tend to hold on to weight more when they eat foods that have those things in them.
Well, they create so much inflammation in the body. Because like you said, your body doesn't know what to do with them, so they fight them. You create additional antibodies because the body thinks there's a foreign invader it needs to defend you against. And inflammation, not to get too technical, but it leads to something called a brain-body block, where only priority signals reach the brain well. Like, I need to use the restroom, I'm tired, I'm hungry. Things like, should I be burning fat or sugar for energy? How quick should my metabolism be running? Those are going to be low priority signals. And someone who's chronically inflamed, their metabolism is very stagnated. So eating foods that won't cause additional inflammation is really important, I would think.
Yeah, and inflammation is associated with pretty much every chronic disease now.
Every chronic disease, everything. Not to mention pain. If your joints hurt and your knees hurt and your body's not feeling well, if you're super inflamed, it's not going to aid that. If you have a bad knee, it's not going to feel better if you're eating a lot of processed food, for sure. So the other thing I would say with those is sustainability, because how does that fare? When you go from eating these prepackaged things to, like you had said, Joe, trying to learn how to eat if you don't have that available, what's the success rate there? Do you think people can sustain their weight loss on programs like that?
And along those lines, that's why you see those clients coming in and saying, "Oh, I've tried
everything.
Yep, I've tried them. And here I am. I'm back to where I started, and I'm frustrated."
Yeah. Yeah. And that too, we see a lot in consults. Sometimes I'll have people say, well, I did this and it worked so well for me. And without being rude, I'm like, well, it couldn't have worked that well because you and I are having this conversation right now. And what I'm trying to drive home there is not a shaming thing. It's the way you lost that weight wasn't sustainable. So let's talk about something that is, right? Because a yo-yo is really dangerous for your body too. Like, what happens when you're jumping and losing and it's going up and down? That's pretty bad for you, right?
Yes, it affects your metabolism. Your metabolism doesn't know what to expect anymore, and so it can't burn things off as efficiently.
And it becomes easier to gain weight if you've been doing that, right? Harder to lose it. Is that pretty accurate?
Definitely.
Yeah. So anything that's not going to get you to the finish line easily is probably, and when I say easily, of course, we all know it can be a little difficult to avoid certain things that smell good. Your family's eating this or that, and you wish you could have some of it. The cool thing is when you get those foods out for a little bit, you stop craving them, right? Your body craves what you're fueling it with. So I see that a lot. As one of our coaches, do you see that also with our people who are going through their follow-ups, that as they're moving through, it's less willpower and more just what their body wants is the better stuff?
Definitely. As they go through the program and they get used to how to eat and how to properly fuel their body, they see that they don't get those cravings anymore, and they're not getting hungry in between meals because their bodies are getting the nutrients it needs. So all of that other stuff kind of falls by the wayside, and they have a much easier time as they go.
Yeah, yeah.
And along those lines, not only our clients, but their families as well. I mean, that's the amazing thing is yesterday, Dr. Leha and I were talking, and he had treated a patient who also is part of the program here. And it was so neat to hear this patient had her husband with her who was like, yeah, she lost the weight, but I did too. And it was so neat.
Yeah, we get that a lot. And again, it's getting a memory up of a story that for a follow-up, I think it was this lady's like second or third follow-up. She brought her husband along for the simple reason that he wanted to get on the scale and show me how much weight he lost too. Like he was so proud that he lost weight, even though he wasn't on the program. So he came to show me, hey, look, I lost all this weight too. So it really is a familial change a lot of times where, especially if that person's the cook, you're going to be eating healthier naturally. But the good thing is it's all real food we're eating anyway, right? We're talking about things you already are eating. It's just, maybe making some tweaks to the things you might pair them with or the sauces you might have on there or, things like that. But it's all real whole foods that we already are having our diet every day.
Yeah, and it's something you can do forever.
Exactly. And that's the important thing, to not keep harping on that. But if you can't do it forever, it's probably not going to work in the long run. Yeah. So as far as the bigger picture here with diet culture in general, mindful eating, like focusing on, kind of listening to the cues of the body and those kind of things. Where does that play into all this? What do you guys think about that? Like, do you think that mindful eating is enough, or do you have to have that plan as well? Because a lot of people say, well, I don't really diet. I just mindful eat. I eat what my body's telling me it wants. How do you feel about that?
I think it depends on the person. Some people need more structure, and so they need to maybe keep a food log or document what they're eating. Other people don't need that. Mindful eating, just being aware of what they're eating, not eating in front of the TV, for example, where you're not paying attention to portions anymore, that sort of thing. If they're just mindful of those things and they're engaged when they're eating their meals and paying attention, that might be all they need. So it just depends on the person, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. No, and again, totally. That's what we preach is that mindful eating. But again, being held accountable of what you're eating as well is where a lot of people come to us for that help. But I totally think that it's very beneficial to be writing down what you're eating and knowing what you're eating and being mindful.
Yeah, because I think if you don't, mindless eating can easily happen. Like you don't even, a lot of times I know for me, if I'm cooking dinner, I'm in the kitchen and the kids have opened something and it's sitting out, you might just walk over and grab some of whatever it is without even thinking about it. It's just there. So that would be an example of mindless eating where I'm not intentional. I'm just doing my thing, not paying attention, and I'm consuming things I don't really need or want. Now, I do think body chemistry, though, has a lot to do with it, too, because where you were saying, Cami, it depends on the individual. If someone has that sugar addiction, that serotonin dopamine release the brain is getting is really pushing them towards sugar. That's kind of why you have one Hershey Kiss, you want 10 more, right? It's that push of that physiological body getting hooked on stuff. The good news is you can break that, right? When we start doing a plan like inStriv and we're eating in a way that doesn't only cause weight loss, but improves health, improves body chemistry, gets your body burning fat naturally, breaks those sugar addictions that, the brain and body both can have. It changes things. And the cravings, that's the amazing part. I've had so many clients tell me, I don't think I can give up sugar. I crave it too much. And a few weeks out, they don't crave it anymore, and those are the people I tell, look, you're not going to like me the first week, but the second or third week, I'm going to be your best friend. So that's kind of where we see, like when the body gives up that, you stop fueling that addiction. It really is, right? Sugar's an addiction for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When you stop fueling it, it changes like anything else. So what would you say is the biggest takeaway on these misconceptions, both of you? What if you had to tell people one thing regarding all of this stuff, what would it be?
My biggest recommendations are that you have to focus on real whole foods and how to eat in real life. Something that you can do every day with real foods. You don't want it to be processed. You want to be focusing on nutrient density and not counting calories like we were saying before. And if you're hitting those main things, you're going to be on the right track. It might need tweaking, but you're at least going to be going in the right direction.
And certainly, you know, this was myths, misconceptions, and the problem is there are so many things out there.
Yeah.
And you know, again, the biggest thing that I would encourage everyone to do is to do their homework. Look at each particular program and the pros, the cons, the everything that you know about that, and do the research.
For sure. And I think for me, you know, I said it before, I'll say it again. I think not choosing a weight loss plan that is not also focused on your health and wellness, but also something that you know you can live with. Like Cami had said, if you can't live with it long term, it's probably not the right fit for you. And if it doesn't feel right, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like something like ketogenic eating would not feel right to me. I love fresh fruit. I love a variety of vegetables. So if your body is telling you something's wrong, chances are very high it is. Our bodies are super intuitive. So listening to your body, practicing that mindfulness, and like Joe said, really researching and making sure what you're doing is doing no harm to your body while that weight is coming off. Because that definitely, not every diet is a do no harm diet. A lot of them can do some harm. And what I love about ours is it does the opposite, right? We're not just focused on weight loss. We're focused on getting your body to its healthiest point. As healthy as you can be is what we want. Well, guys, that'll do it for the inStriv Fat Loss Podcast today. We are so thankful that you joined us for another episode. If you love what you're hearing, make sure you're hitting that like button, the follow button, you're subscribing and sharing this with everyone you know who could benefit from this great diet, health, nutrition, and weight loss advice. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you next time.